Hello, friends. Today's our topic is reproduction in animals and reproduction in plants. Today, we are going to discuss about reproduction in animals and plants. First, we will discuss about reproduction in animals. So, in this, we will discuss about spontaneous generation. So, what is this spontaneous generation and who gave this? Okay, we will discuss it. Spontaneous generation is given by Aristotle in the 17th century. In that time, it was most accepted theory which was given by Aristotle. What the spontaneous generation theory will say means life can arise from non-living matter. Of course, you might know this is the wrong thing, but in that time this is the most accepted theory. Why? Because in the 17th century we are not having that much advanced sciences. Okay, so by some visuals, or they experienced some visuals, by that they came to the conclusion that life can arise from non-living matter. So, according to this theory, Aristotle proposed that life arose from non-living material if the material contained pneuma. Pneuma means vital heat. If non-living matter is provided with pneuma, that is vital heat, that non-living matter can also give rise to new life. So that means from that non-living matter, living organisms will arise. And Aristotle noted several instances of the appearance of animals from environment divide of animals previously. So he also experienced some of the instances, that means incidents, like previously he didn't find any animals in that environment, but from that environment is nothing but the non-living surrounding, non-living matters surrounding, but after some days, after some time, the non-living matter is giving rise to some living organisms. But for example, he observed a sudden appearance of a fish in a new puddle of water. So suddenly he observed a fish is suddenly observed a fish is present in the new puddle of water. So that is the non-living matter. So he thought that Aristotle thought that some might be some non-living matter is present in this, in the new puddle of water, in the water, and from when the vital heat, that means the heat is provided to that non-living matter, so it is produced, so the fish is produced in that tank. So this is about spontaneous generation. Most of the scientists are supported this theory, and most of the scientists also try to disprove this theory, and they are opposed this theory. So some of the scientists who disproved it, that means who disproved the idea of spontaneous generation means Redi in 1668, Spallanzani in 1769, Pasteur in 1861, Tyndall in 1820. So these four scientists by their experiment disproved the idea of spontaneous generation. So, and by their experiment, they said that all living organisms or all organisms originate from pre-existing organisms of similar kind by a process called reproduction. And by in the process of disproving the idea of spontaneous generation, these scientists have told that all organisms originate from pre-existing organisms. That means all organisms will originate from their parents by a process called reproduction. So we will see some of the scientists in 17th and 18th century what they will found out. In 1657, de Graaf, a scientist, found follicles on human ovary. And what I think you may know this follicles. What are follicles? No, follicles are from the follicles the ovum will come out. So okay, we are not going to discuss about this. Follicles on human ovary suggests that he observed the follicles on human ovary and told that both parents contribute to heredity. That means what de Graaf told that the heredity is not given only any one of the parent, but both parents, male and female parent, contribute to the heredity. And okay, what does this sentence means both parents will give some of the characters to the progeny. That means both the parents contribute to heredity. In 1680, Leeuwenhoek and Leeuwenhoek, in sexual reproduction, sperms become associated with eggs. What he told in 1680, Leeuwenhoek told that in sexual reproduction, sperms associated with eggs. That means fertilization. fertilization. Sperms get fertilized with eggs and they produce the zygote. And there are two group of scientists. One are animal curists and are ovists. Okay, we will discuss about ovists next time. So some of the biologists called animal curists. Already in the previous class, we have discussed about preformation theory. In that we discussed this term animalcules or humunculus. So these are the theory was given by some of the animalculists. What they tell, male parent will give information for the progeny and female parent provide the nutrition for the development. That means male and female parents are involved in the progeny heredity information and nutrition providement, but male parent contribute to information for the progeny, for the form of progeny, and female parent provide nutrition for the development. This is the idea of the animalculists. And what the ovists will tell, these are another group of scientists called ovists. What they will tell, egg gives progeny. That means progeny is developed from the egg, and sperm is served as a stimulus or vitalizing force. So according to ovists, egg is the most important thing that gives rise to progeny, and sperm is the only, and that means the sperm will only just stimulus or it just gives a vitalizing force to the egg to produce the progeny. So this is the idea of the ovists. In 1785, Spallanzani found that presence of sperm was essential for the development of progeny. That means without the presence of sperm, so the progeny will not at all develop. So in 1785, Spallanzani told that presence of sperm was essential for the development of progeny. In 1875, O. Hertzsprung, this is one of the most important observation. He studied fertilization in sea urchin and gave conclusion proof for the fusion of egg and sperm. This is most important. In 1875, O. Hertzsprung, he studied fertilization in sea urchin and gave conclusive proof for the fusion of egg and sperm. So these are the important topics in reproduction in animals. Okay, and let us discuss about reproduction in plants. Already we have know the pollen, and pollen is how much important in pollination or for fertilization. In 1700 BC, that means 1700 before Christ, Babylonians and Assyrians, already they are very familiar with the palm trees. They are very familiar with the palm trees, and they were aware of the fact that female palm trees produce fruits only when the flowers were dusted with pollen. And here I want to tell a thing that Babylonians and Assyrians had already practiced the hybridization. They used to fertilize these female plant trees, that means female plant trees inflorescence, with the male pollen. They dusted the pollen to the female palm trees. Then only they'll get the fruits. Generally they'll get the fruits. So we have already know in the 1700 BC only we know the importance of pollen. That means in reproduction. And this is most important thing. Grieve, a scientist, described stamens in flowers. He described the stamens, those are, and described them and said that stamens are the male reproductive parts. They are the male reproductive parts. In 1694, Camerarius, scientist Camerarius, showed that maize plants did not seed when pollen was not applied to the parents. In maize, we will, if this is the male plant, here we will see the tassel and cob is present here. So the pollen will drop from the tassel which is present in the upper side, that is male reproductive organ. Tassel from pollen will transfer, or pollen will fall from tassel to the cob. the hair, which is known as silk, will catch the pollen and they will fertilize and they produce the seed. That is what the Camerarius had described, showed that maize plants did not set seed when pollen was not applied to the pistils. So this is one of the important observation done by Camerarius. And in 1717, already we know, when we will tell the name Thomas Fairchild, in our mind we will get that is Fairchild mule, that is the first artificial hybrid, and he crossed Sweet William and Carnation and produced Fairchild mule, and this is the first artificial hybrid in the world produced by Thomas Fairchild. He crossed Sweet William and Carnation and produced Fairchild mule. That is the first artificial hybrid. After that, so many scientists have produced artificial hybrids like Linnaeus, Kölreuter and Geithner. So, and noted that equal contributions by both pollen and seed parents to the characteristics of progeny. And what they told, so to get a progeny, both parents are important. Both parents are important, and they have to go through the process reproduction. So that's why only the progeny is getting all the characteristics. So that's why only the reproduction is the only process to get the progeny. In 1830, Amici discovered process of fertilization in plants and described the entry of pollen tubes into the ovary. How the pollen tube will enter into the ovary? On the stigma when the pollen grain will fall. And from that, the stigma will produce the glucose molecules or sucrose molecules. Feeding on that, pollen grain will produce the pollen tube into the style. So this was first observed by Amici in the year 1830. In 1884, Strasburger noted fusion of sperm and the nuclei. What after the pollen tube will enter into the style? They reach the female gametocyte and they will enter through the female gametocyte, that means through micropyle, and they fertilize with the egg nuclei, that is secondary nuclei. So this was observed by Strasburger. So these are the most important thing you have to remember. So today we have discussed reproduction in animals and reproduction in plants. These are the most important things. Please note down, and thank you.